All right, we're up. So, welcome again, everybody. We're going to be starting our first virtual Regents review. So, the other thing, as one last thing before I actually get started here. Obviously, we just started our last unit today. It's not very many lessons. I could do statistics if we were really in a time crunch. I could do it within like 4 or 5 lessons. So it's not very long, but keep in mind, we may see a statistics question. You're like, what is that? We haven't done. So we still have a few lessons hanging that, and I'll probably skip those if they are featured in this. So let's get rolling here. First thing, I did want to give a little overview about the test itself. So we are going to be looking at the June 2022 today. Now there is, I'm just going to turn the chat off for a sec so we could focus. There is a little bit of a difference when we obviously use past exams to help us, right? That was, in my opinion, like when I took Regents exams, I just did a few practice exams, and I felt like I would get the red Barron's review book. Doing practice questions was kind of my way of studying, and a lot of people feel the same way. Everyone has their own opinion, but when we do some of these past exams, there's going to be a little bit of a difference, and I'll scroll all the way to the end. You're they space these out quite a bit, so sometimes there's like one question on a whole page. Um, all the practice exams, for the most part, up until the more recent ones from last year. Someone's trying to join not on a school account. Have 37 questions. Okay, as of last June, so the eighth graders that I had last year. Some of you may have friends in the eighth grade that took algebra last year. As seventh graders, their test was new. The only difference was it was 35 questions. So they cut two out. So again, I just want to throw that out there. It is a little weird if we do like a bunch of practice exams and you're like expecting 37. So they did cut two out. Now, where did that cut come? It came from the part two questions. Part two questions are like the shorter, kind of hard to see. Something like this, right? This is a classic part two, like a combining like terms. Think about my test, like something that you could do. I usually make these 2 points on my test. Relatively easy, but it's not multiple choice. It's like a multiple choice question without the choices type of thing. Not super involved. There's not multiple parts to it. So they did cut two of these out. So what is I'm going to write on a random page here. So what is the format of your test going to look like, the Regents? And again, this started last June. So there's really only a handful of exams that had this, June 2024, the August 2024, and there was just a Regents given this past January. Okay, there's 3 given a year. So there's 3 exams that are going to feature this style. We're still going to use, it's not like the old ones are garbage now. It's just they have extra questions. Part 1 is the multiple choice section. That hasn't changed at all. There's 24 multiple choice. Okay. Those are going to be 2 points each. I try to keep most of my tests the similar grading style. Some of them have varied a little bit, but you'll notice it's right in line with that. Part 2. Okay. It used to be 8 of those short response questions. We said 2 got cut, so now it's only 6. We'll call these short response, I guess. Times 2. So those are 2 points each. Part 3, there are 4 of those. Those are a little bit more involved. The test you guys just took yesterday, those were all kind of like part 3-ish questions, right? Something to do, and then maybe a follow-up. Like graphing a system, and then, hey, where do they intersect? So a little bit more involved than just a short response. So there's 4 of those. Those are worth 4 points each. And there's one part 4 question that's worth 6 points. Usually this is a system. Hey, write a system, some sort of like, is this person correct? They're guessing this. Usually you could assume that they're not correct. And then it'll say something like solve. So usually like 3 parts to it, and that's worth 6 points. Okay. If you do the math here, add everything up. It used to be out of 86 points. With those 2 questions being cut for you guys, your raw score will be out of 82 points. Okay. And we've talked about this a little bit, but it's a little strange. And we'll talk more about this. I don't want to spend too much time on it now, but the idea of like how your score is calculated. For example, if you get, let's say, an 80 out of 82, you could sit there, if someone has a calculator and want to help me. An 80 out of 82 is a 97.5, so let's call it a 98%. It doesn't work that way. So there's actually a chart that tells us, hey, if you get this score, this is what you get, a conversion chart, it's called. So it's not your direct grade like it would be on, let's say, my test. My test yesterday was what, like 34? So usually I'll write on your test, hey, you got a 93%, right? You got this out of 34. And I'm just literally dividing it. This, they have a chart that the state provides that kind of tells us. Obviously, it's in your benefit for the most part towards, the middle side of it. Usually as you get towards the top, it's kind of accurate. So if you get an 81 out of 82, it's, around a 99, something like that. An 80 out of 82 is a 98. So it stays accurate towards the top, but some people refer to this as a curve. But yeah, just wanted to go over that. So there is a conversion chart for the test. Any questions with the formatting? I know we'll get started with actual questions, but I just wanted to set that up first. Ooh, let me turn the chat on. I turned the chat back on. Any questions with that? I think it's important to know this stuff and not just go in and be like, hey, I'm just gonna, not that that's a bad thing, I guess, but hey, I'm just gonna go in and take this test and hope for the best. I think it's important to know kind of how the scoring works and things like that. I'm not, some teachers may not like to talk about this conversion chart or something like that, and let me pull it up for this test. So the conversion chart. What should I get? On this test, to get a 90, so this was out of 86, you needed a 77 out of 86 to get a 90. So let's see what that actually is. It's probably pretty close to a 90. Yeah, it's an 89.5. So it's about, like I said, as you get towards the top, like if you're interpreting what I'm saying is like, oh, he's saying that everyone gets like a bonus and everyone gets plus 5 points. No, for you guys, for the most part, we're going to be living in that 90 range. The conversion chart is going to be pretty accurate to what you should get. If you've heard about the algebra test before, as you get towards the 65-ish area, which no one in here is going to be living towards, it's not actually 65. That's where it's really benefiting you a lot. But that shouldn't really impact any of us. I'll put it that way. What questions are the part 3s and 4? Part 3 is very usually, like I said yesterday, those were classic like part 3s, like graphing a system, maybe a generic word problem. Yeah, like to get a 65 on this test, you needed a 27 out of 86. So we said this was about a 90. To get a 90, you needed literally about a 90, right? Like a tad below it. To get a 65, you needed something like a, is that 30 something? 31. So 31% becomes a 65. Again, no one should be living in that range in here, I don't imagine. But just throwing that there. It's curved, but in the middle. Yeah, it's like some people think curved is like everyone gets a bonus or something like that. All right, so yeah, let's look at some actual questions. I wanted to talk about the formatting. We'll talk all about this again. If you're still like, wait, I don't get it, it will come back up again. We start with the statistics question, of course, that we haven't talked about yet with number 1. Like I said, I am going to bounce around quite a bit. We're not just going to do the whole test. Doing the whole test together and me talking would take probably about an hour and a half if we did it like pretty rushed. So we'll bounce around a little bit. Number 1, we haven't actually talked about yet. You could probably figure it out, but causal relationship. Let's look at a multiple choice we could all do. Let's look at 4 and 5. So every test you've taken this year have had multiple choice. We do them in class all the time. So I don't think this is like new to anyone. Let's say take a minute or two maybe on your scrap paper in your notebook, just since we are bouncing around and not going in sequential order here, maybe just make a note like, hey, number 4, what the answer is, and 5. So 4 and 5, no spoilers in the chat, please. We'll talk about what I'll also do when we go over the question, like, hey, where was this topic? That's important to know too, right? Like, oh, when did we do that? What topic is that? Number 4 is pretty obviously a factoring question, right? What is number 5? Kind of like a modeling an inequality. Yep, try 4 and 5. All right, these are not super involved. So again, number 4, factoring question, I'd file that under our sum product factoring. I always find factoring multiple choice, which they love to give, especially early on in the test. I always find factoring multiple choice questions to be a little silly. And I've talked about this in the past because you really have to know how to do factoring to answer this. No, right? You could do box method, you could work backwards. You could use your calculator, type in anytime a question says equivalence, right? You could type this into y equals. You could type all 4 choices into y equals, see which one matches. So there's a question they wanted to know if you know how to factor, you don't actually know how to factor. But most of us would do this the real way. What 2 numbers add up to 5 and multiply to number 6? 6 and -1. How are you supposed to know that it was a factoring question? Yeah, because it doesn't actually say factor. If you look at all 4 choices, they're in, we call that factored form. I usually call that like double bubble, right? Or going the other way, it's like a box method question in reverse, right? 2 bubbles becoming a trinomial. And now our bubbles are just going to be x plus 6 and x minus 1. So choice 4 here. Nice, easy start, right? They usually like to throw, like I said, a multiple choice, a factoring multiple choice early on. Dots all the time, I see, like in the first few questions. All right, and this was, we did inequality word problems and things like that, graphing them. This was just translating one. So I guess vocab, like how do you know which symbol to use? How do you know which variable to put in the right spot? What did you guys say for question 5? Peter has $100. Lemonade is $2 each. Okay, lemonade is X. Juice boxes are Y. Juice boxes are 50 cents each. What did we say for question 5? I should charge my iPad. Ooh, good call. Choice 3. So yeah, almost like a little reading comp with the lemonade versus juice box. So lemonade is X, and those are $2 each. So obviously we want 2X. So 1 and 2 are out. And now it all comes down to the inequality symbol. Is this less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to, right? It's going to be less than or equal to. Okay, we always talk about vocab words, right? Like at least, maximum, things like that. This problem doesn't have that, but we've seen this before. You have to use like context clues, common sense, if you want to call it that. Hey, if he has $100, can he spend more than $100? No. Okay, so it's kind of like an embedded at most question. Hey, I could spend at most $100, a maximum of $100. He can't spend over 100 if that's all he has. Multiple choice, there's no partial credit. Yeah. I know some teachers do that, maybe 6th grade math teachers, but that's why I've kind of done that. I know some people say like, hey, if you show your work, I'll do -1 instead of -2. Multiple choice is right or wrong. Multiple choice, yeah, right or wrong. Everything else, the written response is partial credit. Okay, let's skip a little bit. The writtens are going to take a while, so I'm skipping through a good chunk. Ooh, this is a good one. Okay. because people hate this topic, especially you guys. Let's look at question 11. And then maybe we'll throw a 12 in there. Ooh, 12 I should have thrown on your quadratic test. For number 11, what topic was this? Where was this from? So this is standard form. It looks like, no, it's not a graphing related question, even though it's talking about something graphing related, standard form. This was that, we called it two names, rearranging formulas or literal equations. Does anyone remember that? It's earlier in the year, probably October-ish. Not a topic that people love. That's the one where you take a formula, you manipulate it, you change the way it looks. Like taking y equals mx plus b and getting it to say x equals instead of y equals, right? So in this case, for the formula for standard form of a line, it wants to know which expression represents y. So if you were to take this equation and get it to say y equals, that's what this question boils down to. That's what this question is asking. So it's a little strange. It's a little unorthodox because you're not actually solving it and getting an answer. You're going to get something in terms of those four other variables, a, b, c, and x. So what would you do? And when we learned this topic, I said like almost pretend that there's numbers there if you're really confused. What would you do first if you were solving for y? You would want to get rid of this ax, right? So you would subtract ax from both sides. That's going to cancel. I'm just going to write below it. We'll be left with by. And what is c minus ax? It's not like we could type that into our calculator. It's just c minus ax. And now if we have b times y, by, how do we get rid of that b in front? We divide by b. So yeah, this topic may come back to a little bit, literal equations. It was in the equation unit. Now let's see which choice has that. Looks like choice 1, I believe, right? Not a favorite of everybody's. People find it a little strange, but something that you'll see probably as a multiple choice, or if it did appear in the written, this would be like a good part 2, like something kind of quick, not super involved. Do you get a bubble sheet? You could write in the booklet. They don't grade your booklet for multiple choice, so you get a bubble sheet, I guess. It's like a piece of paper. Yep. Really quick, we could do this one on the fly here. Hey, if this is already factored and I said, what are the solutions to this, or where does it equal 0? It's already in that like T-chart format, right? So I could just take this and set each factor equal to 0. Some of you were a little thrown off, like, what do these braces mean? It's just a way of writing your answers. Just saying like, hey, inside of these are the two answers. It does not mean anything like coordinate related. It's just a way of grouping your two answers together. What would the answers be to this equation? Yeah, choice 1. You would take each of these, set them equal to 0. 2x minus 4 would equal 0 when x equals 2. And 3x plus 4 would equal 0 if you subtract 4 and divide by 3 when x is negative 4/3. Okay. Obviously we talked a little bit about mean and stuff like that today, right? You could think about, I mean, there's only 5 values. You could probably do this without your calculator, but you could use one var stats to help with this. We'll save that for now because we haven't talked about quartile stuff yet with statistics. Skip around a little bit. Oh, we could do this. You just took a test on quadratic systems. A quadratic function and a linear function are graphed on the same set of axes. Number 16 I'm looking at. Which situation is not possible? So which of these outcomes could not happen? We talked about this the very first day we did systems, right? There's 3 possibilities when you have a quadratic, a parabola, and a line. There's 3 possibilities. Choice 4. Yeah, it's impossible for these to intersect in exactly 3 points. Either they don't intersect, they're tangent and they hit once, or the more common one that we see all the time, you saw it yesterday in your test, they intersect twice. It's not possible for them to hit 3 times. Okay. Another like polynomial question I'm skipping. Ah, what happened? Let's look. Okay, polynomial vocab. I did not hand back your test today. Nope. A little bit of a throwback to probably before Christmas break. An example of a sixth-degree polynomial with a lead coefficient of 7 and a constant term of 4. I think this question was on that test. Which of those choices is a sixth degree? There's like 3 vocab words in this question. Sixth degree, lead coefficient of 7, and a constant term of 4. Look at number 20. Yeah, choice 2. Choice 2. When you refer to degree, how would you describe degree with polynomials? What does degree mean? Highest exponent you see. So highest exponent of 6. Lead coefficient. Lead coefficient isn't necessarily the first number you see. That's kind of what it means. It's the first number when it's written in the correct order. Which correct order you go from highest to lowest exponent. So choice 2 is the answer. It's not written in standard form, however. So if you did write it in standard form, the lead coefficient would be 7. That could be a little confusing. And constant term, a constant is just the plain old regular number. Knowing that actually boils it down to a 50-50. If you know what a constant is, right, multiple choice strategy, like cross off things that don't make sense, even if I'm not, let's pretend for a second I forgot what the word degree means. And I'm like, hey, I know what a constant is. Okay, only 1 and 2 have a constant of 4. Now I can, work something else out. Hey, now it's just a matter of choice 1 and 2. Okay. Multiple choice, I would say most people, when they take the Regents, like, okay, that wasn't that bad. Maybe there's like one in there that's a little crazy. Ooh, interest rate, 22. We'll save that for Regents review. This one, when would this have been? January? This was your interest formula, growth or decay, I guess we'll call it instead. So 1 plus or minus r, it even gives it to you in the question, and it kind of explains everything, which is funny. It says A is the total amount, P is the principal. Principal is what you start with. R is the interest rate, and T is the time in years. Which statement correctly relates information regarding the annual interest for each given situation? Take a moment to read 21. Each choice is kind of its own explanation. It's basically like which one is correctly set up. Take a minute to read 21. Is anyone not able to get in? Someone was trying to get in earlier. I think everyone's good. Okay. One little hint I'll give you here, keep in mind with percentages, I'm going to use one that's not even a choice here, but with percents, like if there's an 8% growth or increase, right? We don't actually use the number 8, we use them as a decimal. If you ever want to convert a percent to a decimal, simply divide it by 100 or move the decimal back twice. So which choice here is correctly set up and explained? I'm seeing a lot of choice 3. Let's see. 0.86 means you're losing 14%, correct? Yeah. People get a little confused with these because they think, like, let's use choice 3, which was the answer here. They think like 86 has to be involved somewhat, right? Like, oh, it's an 86% decay or 86% growth or something like that. It's all in relation to the number 1. Because if that base were to be 1, it means it doesn't change at all. So what happened to the number 1 here? It's missing 0.14. It got 0.14 taken away from it. So this is declining, decaying is what we usually call this. And 0.14 as a percent is 14%. But that's the most important thing, was making that connection between percentages and decimals. It's a little bit more clear when it's growth. I think decay are the ones that people mess up. Like look at choice 4. Someone would circle that. Hopefully not in here, but someone across New York State might circle that, right? Oh, 0.68, 68% something decay. No, that would actually be a 32% decay. What's wrong with choice 1 and 2? What's wrong with choice 1? I think someone said it. Justin said it. Yeah, that it looks like 25, but the decimal's off a little bit. It's 2.5. Take it and just I remember my teacher explained percents, and I still remember this, 20 something years later, as the two little circles in the percent sign, meaning like move it 2 jumps when you're making it into a percent or vice versa. So if you move that decimal 2 spots over, 2.5. So we're off a little bit. It should be 25%. And same thing with 52. 52 is even more off because in choice 2, that's 0.52%. I could see someone putting that maybe, thinking then that's 52. I could see that. But yeah, choice 3 for number 21. 22 looks like a crazy question. You're like, when did we ever do that? When we do Regents review, we're going to have like, I'm trying to think what I call it, like odds and ends, like things that never lived in a unit. Not that we missed anything or like something was cut, but these weird questions that I group into a review lesson where it's like, hey, they ask this question a lot, like 22. They ask that a lot. And to be honest, it doesn't really like occur anywhere. It's not like we did a unit on like converting kilometers to miles or something like that. So it's just this weird, like little mini topic that we'll cover it during review. It's actually pretty simple. We'll save it for now. And I have like a strategy to make these easy, but almost every year I'm seeing this on the multiple choice. It happened like for the first time, like before COVID, 2018 maybe. And they didn't give it for a few years, but now almost every year I'm seeing this like conversion question. Okay, and there's a few other topics like that. You may feel like, wait, when did we do like converting things? We didn't. It's just a weird random topic that they throw in there. So we will cover it during review. Basically, how I do this is just by cross-canceling units. Here, we'll go over it quickly. Anyone want to throw a guess out for 22? You want to look at it for a minute? Let's just do it. So if you want minutes per mile, so you want it to be when you're all done, you want it to say minutes over miles. Watch how simple this is going to be. That's what I mean. It looks very scary. You're going to cross units out, like cross cancel, until you're left with minutes and miles. So let's check. People are saying 1. Does 1 work? I don't even know the answer. So if, number 1, if I cross off hours and hours, kilometers and kilometers, yeah. What am I left with? Minutes and miles. So number 1 works out to minutes per mile. Let's look at one that like doesn't work out, which obviously are the other 3. Number 2, kilometers, kilometers. I'm canceling something up top with something on the bottom. They don't have to be on top of each other, but anywhere numerator versus denominator. Miles, okay. Hours, hours. So nothing else cancels in number 2, right? I'm left with this like mess of a conversion. So it's just a matter of cross canceling and seeing what you're left with. So I mean, looks scary, but really not that bad. And let's do one more multiple choice to close it out. I'm going to skip to 24, and then we'll start looking at the written section. We're about halfway through this. So again, another topic we didn't really super love. This was a recursive sequence question. These were the ones where it wasn't arithmetic or geometric. It's kind of like they're making up some rule. So I'll translate this for you into like English. So A1 is -3. So hey, the first term is -3. And then does anyone remember this? This was the whole knowing how to do these, because it looks very strange the first time you saw these. Can anyone explain to me in words what I just highlighted, like how you would put that into layman's terms? You can't cross out you can't cross off numerator. Like cross canceling, we call that. So it has to be something up top, going back to the other one. Had to be something up top with something on the bottom. Those occur almost every year. So while they look tough, if you're able to do that, they're really not that bad. I forgot what the multiple formula was. Huh? Ethan, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Yeah, for this, what I'm getting at, I asked, what did I highlight here, guys? A sub n versus a sub n minus 1, the relationship was just the term before it. Okay, so what this is saying is take to find any given term, take the term before it, multiply it by -3, and then subtract 2. So we're going to start with the -3, and what do we want to find? The fourth term. So starting with the -3, which is the first, to find the second term, we're going to follow this. It's almost like an assembly line. Like, hey, keep doing this, keep doing this, keep doing this. So for the second term, we're going to multiply it by -3. We're going to plug in what the previous one was, and then subtract 2. And you have to do these one at a time. So obviously they wouldn't ask you to like find a sub 29. You'd have to do it 28 times. So they're kindly only asking us the fourth term. So the second term works out to 7, right? And now you need to know that to find the third term. It's almost like this stays the same each time, and you're just plugging in what you got as your previous answer. So when I'm doing a sub 3, my previous answer was 7. That would be -21 minus 2 is -23. And we're going to get some school spirit on this one. -3 times -3 times -23 minus 2, we get a final answer of 67. We call these, like, I think the lesson was called other recursive sequences, if you have a very good memory. Because it wasn't, we learned about arithmetic sequences, we learned about geometric. These are the ones where it's kind of like its own rule. This is just a made up gibberish problem. Questions? What school do you go to? Oh. I think you said, what school do I go to? Questions with the multiple choice. We'll take a look at some of the writtens. For the writtens, I'll take a little bit of a breath. I might say like, hey guys, take 5 minutes to work on this one. I was trying to go at a little bit of a quicker pace for the multiple choice. Again, we're skipping around quite a bit. What I do for Regents review, I know that there's a bunch of you in here that older siblings, cousins, friends have had me. I put together like a Regents review packet that's very helpful. I post all the exams that we do, even ones we don't do. Some people are very ambitious. They're like, hey man, I'm going to keep burning through these. I'm going to do as many as I can. That's awesome. Obviously there's a lot. It goes all the way back to June 2014 with the Algebra 1 Regents exam. So, and there's 3 a year, minus some of like COVID years where there wasn't any, but not realistic that like we as a class are going to get through all of them. So we focus on like, a certain amount. And if there's any extras, I'll post all the keys if you want to go above and beyond and do some of those. All right. So we talked about part 2s being kind of like short response, something where it's literally just 2 points. So it's your options are getting a 0, 1, or a 2. They give you directions here. And it even says, let's highlight this, for all questions in this part, a correct answer with no work shown will receive only 1 point. Meaning if they do say for whatever reason, like that one's probably a bad example, but if it's something where maybe it says solve algebraically and you just put x equals 2, even if the answer is 2, you're not going to get full credit. We should all know that by now. I don't think that's like brand new to anyone. We'll do a few of these. Again, you guys are only going to have 6. It used to be 8, which maybe they felt was like a little bit too much. Let's look at 26 to start. So this is a good part 2, right? There's not a lot to do here. You can answer this in like 10 seconds if you know what's going on. It says, describe the transformations performed on the graph of f of x, which is the parent quadratic, x squared, to obtain the graph of g of x, if g of x is x minus 3 squared minus 4. So g of x is in vertex form, which you don't really need to know about that to answer this question. The question is, what's the transformation? We talked about transformation rules for the very first time with absolute value functions, and I said they kind of apply to everything else as well. So how would you describe this as a transformation? How is this parent function moving, shifting? Yeah, some people are saying, I forgot this. Once you see the answer, you'll be like, oh, that's it. This was not on our quadratic test. Yeah, your answer can be something as simple as this. Shifts 3 units. You want to say the number, not just like it moves. 3 units to the right. That was our IHOP rule. And it shifts 4 units down. 4 units down. That's it. You could say synonyms here, obviously, or fancier words, right? Horizontal translation, vertical translation, slide, shifts, they all mean the same thing. You do want to indicate how many units and the actual direction. You don't want to just say it moves, right? Um, the other thing, I'll kind of pull it up here. It's going to be too many screens being shared. So let me just look at what could you have done to get a 1 out of 2. We've looked at these before, like the model responses. I'm pulling them up on my laptop. Let's look at the model responses for 26. I want an example of a 1 out of 2. Ooh, huh? Oh, that's really weird. Okay. They have this as, I'm not really getting the difference. They have down, oh, okay, yeah, never mind. I was gonna say, this looks right to me. Down 3, right 4. Down 3, right 4. So while this person knew the whole IHOP rule, I guess they just switched the numbers maybe. That's the only thing they have for, sometimes it's like hard to get a 1. It's either kind of like, oh, I know it or I don't. Or maybe like a really small error like that. So if you maybe just flip-flop the numbers, at least you knew, to go to the right. Obviously a 0 could just be any gibberish. Yeah, they have some crazy examples. Okay. Ooh, average rate of change. This is a good one. And then maybe we'll skip to part 3 after this. Average rate of change was a big topic. AROC, we call this, right? Average rate of change is basically what? Yeah, there's no work to show for that one, Rolas. Like sometimes you don't have to go crazy with work. They didn't ask for it. They mean, I guess, more so if they ask for something. Like even here, you could just kind of put the, well, I guess you could show some work. Yeah, AROC is basically slope with a specific little side note. It's for functions where it doesn't have an actual slope. Like this is, I would guess we can call this like a piecewise function. It's made up of what, 4 or 5 different line segments together, right? So every junction here has a different slope, but as a whole, we could look at the AROC. So we're going to be told to look at the AROC between 1 and 4. So we're looking between that highlighted section. That's between 1 and 4. So what you're doing with AROC is like treating it like an imaginary line. So imagine there was a line connecting the beginning and the end of that section. So it's easier than what you think. Sometimes you have to like find each slope and average them together. No, it's just like treat it like a line. Where's the beginning of it? Where's the end? Excuse me. So the beginning of it is at 140, that looks like. Just call these X and Y values. And the end of it is at 400. Okay, all I care about is the beginning of this line segment and the end of it. I don't need to find all 3 slopes and average them together. So what's the slope of that red imaginary line? The increase in Y is 60. The increase in X is 3, going from 1 to 4. So as a simplified ratio, we could say $20 per hour. $20 per hour. Okay, it's not a bad test, June 22. I haven't seen it. Sometimes we see questions like, oh man, this is hard, or a lot of curveballs or something. We haven't really encountered anything like that yet. We are skipping around a little bit, but Questions with that one? That was me talking about the test earlier. Okay, that one's pretty basic. Should we? Domain and range, we know how to do that. I'm gonna skip that. Okay, because these take a while, the part threes. Factor completely. Ooh, we talked about that. Ooh, maybe we'll do this quick. Or at least talk about this. So this is a part. Sometimes they do this. They sneak it, and I hate this because they sneak this in as a part two. Like this is like a tough question to only give 2 points. Completing the square question, which we all know is like a very involved process. And it's only worth 2 points, kind of annoying. So sometimes they squeeze something that could be a 4-pointer into a 2-pointer, which is, like I said, for lack of a better word, annoying. So let's see how to do this. It does say exact values, which means what? We want to leave it as a radical. So I'm anticipating this is not going to work out nicely. I don't want to round it. I want to leave my answer in radical form. So if I'm doing CTS, I'm going to push the 5 over to the right. We do our little magic number. What would the magic number be in this example? 16. It would be half of that middle term squared. Half of 8 is 4. Squared is 16. So we add that to both sides. As a bubble, the bubble is always going to be half of whatever the original b value was. So in this case, x minus 4 squared. We get 21. We take the square root of both sides. We get plus or minus. Don't forget that. 21. Can't even be simplified, right? And now we just push the 4 over. It's not terrible, but it does feel like we're doing a lot of work for only 2 points. And that is the exact value of this quadratic. Okay, no rounding, no decimals. Technically, even if it did simplify, let's pretend it was like 28, like something we could have simplified. It doesn't say anything about simplifying, so theoretically, like we could have left it unsimplified. 21 doesn't simplify anyway, but always read the directions. Why is it plural? Value, if that's what you're talking about, values, plus or minus? If we forgot the plus or minus, what would we get? So if you just put like 4 plus rad 21, probably a 1. Let me look at the model. What number is this? 32. Oh, this is funny. So I'm looking at the model. There's a kid, he did quad formula for it, got the correct answer. Some of you guys asked about this during when we took our test before this last one. Like, hey, what if they tell you to do something and you just like disregard it? You get a 1 out of 2. So someone did quad formula perfectly correct, but obviously you didn't follow the instructions because they said use completing the square. So you get a 1, which is generous because you didn't follow the directions. Even this gets a 1, huh? They didn't take the square root of 21, and you just get 25. That's a generous 1 out of 2. But yeah, Maddie, going back to your question, if you forgot the plus minus, I would say a 1. That's a really, really tiny mistake compared to like what they're giving credit to. But unfortunately, sometimes that happens. You're like, and you guys will ask me that, like, hey, why did I get a 2 out of 4? My friend did like no work and he got a 2 out of 4. I made, maybe sometimes it's not equitable, I guess is the word, but it's just how it works out. You might feel like you did more correct or someone else, got more things wrong, but it just shakes out the same. We only have so many options. For here, we have 3 options. Is it a 0, a 1, or a 2? There's no half points. Yeah, there's no halves. All right, let's look at a part 3. So part 3 is you're looking at 4 points. Your last test, the one you took yesterday, those are all part 3 type questions, right? Something like this. And it makes it kind of easy to grade from a teacher perspective. Like something like this one, I would say is probably like 2 points for the first question, and then a point, 1 point, and 1 point for the remaining questions. We did that one, so I'm going to skip it. Rig we can't do. So we are going to learn about with statistics linear regression. We'll cover that for 35. Ooh, you guys might need graph paper. Okay. And I will be providing you with some paper copies of test two, and that will help with some of these in the future. I might I do the little shrunken down ones, so it's not like a packet that's 30 pages. So it's a shrunken down version of it with like 2 or 4 pages on one sheet. You may have those for some of these exams. I think it's helpful. I'm gonna skip some of the ones that have graphs in them, unless you guys have graph paper available. So I guess we'll try 33. I remember doing this question. I don't know if it was on a test or in a lesson or on a homework, but I remember doing this not too long ago. So we're given, is anyone else? Yeah, it was on a test. Thank you, Sean. The graph below models the height of Sam's kite over a period of time. So this would have been on your function test, I guess, increasing and decreasing and stuff. What are explain what the zeros of the graph represent in the context of the situation. We've seen that a million times. Context of the situation. What do the zeros mean? State the intervals where the height is increasing, and then state the maximum height the kite reaches. So why don't you guys take a few minutes to try question 33. I'll be right back. 1 second.
In purple. On the color.
Can you say hi? Say hi.
Hi. On the color.
Okay. Charlie's taking over for us here. What are the zeros in the graph? What did we say? Explain what the zeros. The kite's on the ground. So those would be
I'm gonna do some purple.
okay. Those would be the very beginning when the kite's on the ground, and then again when it's back down. So in the context of this situation, it's when the kite's hitting the ground. You're neater than some of my students, Charlie.
I'm gonna do some purple.
You want purple?
I'm gonna do some purple.
Okay. What's your favorite color?
Purple.
Okay, so we said kite on the ground. And then state the time intervals where the kite is increasing.
I want my pencil.
Yeah, if you remember this question when we did this on the test, there's a formal way to write this. So you could say between 0 and 0.5 and between 1 and 2. Usually we don't include it, but they were very lenient with this question. You could have literally just written 1-2, for example. When you generally write about increasing and decreasing, you don't want to include the boundaries. But they were very forgiving with this. They're kind of like, they don't really care if you include it or not. And then what's the maximum height the kite reaches? Thank you. What did we say for the maximum height? Say hi, everyone. You say hi? You type into them?
I
What's the maximum height? You want to call it? Chart? Hold on a sec.
undercover.
Max height, what do we got? 60 feet. Very good. 60 feet.
I'm gonna do some lights. I'm gonna color the whole page.
Can you say goodnight to everyone? Because they're going to try one more problem. You want to say goodnight? Good night.
Good night.
Say do your work.
Do you work? Okay.
We'll end with question 37. We're going to say goodnight to Charlie really quick. 37 is your classic system of equations. So try this one out.
Who's that?
That's you. That's you.
Who's that up top?
Those are them talking. Say goodnight to everyone. So try 37 out, guys. You're setting and solving up the system. I'll be right back. All right, we're back. So, as we've talked about before, last question on your test, if we had to put money on it, you're going to see a system. Have there been examples that disprove that? Sure, but very, very common that we see that close out the test. And again, this is a 6-point question. Not that anyone would be celebrating this, but doing the first part, just translating into a system, 2 out of 6 right there. Anyone want to share the system that they wrote? You always want to make sure you're using the letters that they tell you to use. So we have adult tickets and child tickets. So doing this alone, you're getting 2 out of 6. Yeah, just directly translating. So we have 2. Oh, this is kind of weird. For a group of 6 that included 2 children, so just a weird way of saying there's 4 adults, because that would be 6 people. 325.94 And then for a group of 5, that included 3 children. So how many adults would that be? 2. It was 256.95. Just, I guess, like awkward phrasing there, right? They don't actually tell you how many adults go. They say it's a group of 6 and it was 2 kids. Sophie, there's a lot of spider talk. I'm a little concerned. If you don't use the letters, no, Maddie. It just gets like weird. Like, what if someone wrote 2x plus 4y? Technically, if you have let statements, I guess it's fine. It's just not clear if you're using random letters and you don't use let statements. Someone could be like, "Hey, I don't know what you meant by this." If you had let statements and you're using, I think to make it easier, just use the letters that they give you. Okay. And now solve it. So how would we solve this? A little bit, we're gonna be a little rusty with this. While we just took a system test on quadratics, we haven't done linear systems in quite a bit. Yeah, I would say this is like your elimination example. You could take the bottom equation and multiply it by -2. It's maybe coming back to you a little bit. So what you're trying to do is create an additive inverse. So by multiplying the bottom equation by -2, I have a plus and minus 4a. So those will cancel out or eliminate. And what does that help me out? 256.95 times 2 is what? 513.90. Someone fact check me there. And now you could add these together. Okay, you'll get -4c and 3. Who has a calculator? We have a lot of annoying calculations. 325.94 minus 513.90. What is that? Negative. $188. 187. Thank you. 187.96. And we're going to divide that by -4. It does say to find the exact cost of each type of ticket. So this is going to tell us how much children's tickets are. And then we just have to substitute in to figure out how much a adult ticket is. And there's usually a follow-up because, again, this is a 6-point question. So it's kind of like 222 or maybe like 231. The middle part is the most valuable here. So it's what, 46.99 for a child's ticket. This is expensive wherever this is. An amusement park. And now, hey, I'm missing the adult tickets. We could take this, go back to one of the original ones. I don't know, this one. Oops. Plug in for C, and now just solve for A. I don't have a calculator on me, so I'm using Desmos here. 3 times 46.99, 140.97. So solving for adult tickets, I believe you get an adult ticket is 57.99. Kind of just weird numbers, I guess, for this one. Usually it's, something smaller. Again, we solved for C. We happen to eliminate for C. A little bit of review as well. Let's say you did, for whatever reason, someone use ChatGPT. Let's say you wanted to eliminate C. That would be a double elimination, whereas with my way, you only had to do a single. With C, you could do like times 3 and times -2 as well to create a plus or minus 6C. Usually you want to look out for like the easier of the two. Like here, A is a little bit easier than C because you only have to multiply one equation. Now let's see what the follow-up was. This is a rando. Determine the cost of a group of 4 that has 3 kids. So now that we know the prices, how much would this cost? So 4 people, 3 kids, and obviously just 1 adult. Someone help us out. What would that work out to? That's a strange follow-up. Usually the system format is like write a system. The middle part is like, hey, justify that this is correct or not. So you plug it in, you can imagine that it doesn't work out because of the next part, it will say solve or finish this off. That's usually like the standard format. This is a little bit of a different one. This works out to 198.96. Usually you go into this thinking like of another test, like an essay or something, like the last question is going to be the hardest. It's the scariest because it's worth 6 points. Usually I would say most people get like 6 out of 6. Can you make an error with something like this? Yeah, but it's very user friendly. Systems are not, it's not the easiest thing in the world, but I think it's very approachable for everyone. It's like, okay, this isn't so bad. I set this up, I solve it. You know what to expect as well. Like, a system is coming. It's more so like the part threes that people like forget to label. Little things add up. I say that a lot, right? Little mistakes, like even yesterday, you could have been like, hey, I thought I did like really well and I lost like 2 or 3 points, and they were all little tiny things. Oh, I forgot to label, I forgot to do this, I forgot to do this minor thing. You're not really going to encounter the situation of like, oh man, I read 37, I just didn't know how to do it. Does that happen? Maybe, but that could be like a preparation issue because you should know everything. You should be fully prepared. You should be ready to go. It's hopefully we want to avoid with these review sessions, with the review in class. We want to make sure that we clear up all these little things. All right. So we're only 5 minutes over, even with a Charlie introduction. She wanted to say hi to you guys. Questions. I know it was a little rushed. We did skip around a little bit. Once we start review, I think this will feel a little bit more normal. And sometimes what I've done in the past with these is I'll assign like a multiple choice section for homework. So I'll say, hey guys, before Wednesday, try to finish 1 through 24, finish the multiple choice. Then that makes it a lot faster for us to go over it because we could just be like, hey, here's the answers. Here's how you do this one. And then we could just focus more on the written. So we'll take it week by week. Every week it will change a little bit. But more so, I found in the past, I like to actually go over test itself. This doesn't really work well in a class period. The time just goes by too quick. It's not enough time. So with the hour plus, I like to focus on these exams. In class, what do we do? More so just like practice, lessons, going over, big concepts. Hey, let's talk about systems. Let's do a quick review and do some practice with that. Any other questions? I just got here. Just got here at 8:05 is crazy. How old is Charlie? She's going to be 3 in like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Are we going to do this for others? What do you mean, Josephine? Like going over practice tests? More or less, yeah. Like I said, it will vary a little bit. And sometimes we're going to go into it. Like, oh, this might work out really nice, actually. Maybe not. So like next week, you guys are going to be taking the mock Regents. It's a little bit too close. I think last year it worked out a little bit better. But with that one, we could like just go over the mock. Like, hey, we all did this test. Let's go over it. Here's some things I noticed. Here's some scoring things. Some of them might be homework assignments where it's like, hey, you guys did this for homework. Let's look at this question. Let's talk about this. Sometimes I might just say, hey guys, let's take 10 minutes, try these part threes, whatever it may be. Timing is not really an issue because you'll have 3 hours, in case you're curious about that. I didn't talk about that earlier. You have 3 hours. No, you can't leave early. If you're like, hey, I'm going to speed run, I'm going to finish in 40 minutes and bounce out of school, you do have to stay. Yeah, the mock Regents don't get too crazy concerned with it. I'm not take it seriously. I'm going to grade it. I think it's very impactful in terms of like giving you guys a baseline, but I don't want anyone to be like stressed about it or what's the first word? It's a mock. It doesn't count, doesn't impact your grade. I'm going to grade it and I'll say, hey, this is what you would have gotten. You would have gotten a 92. You would have gotten a whatever it may be, just to give you again a baseline, and we'll go over it. We haven't even started review yet, so obviously your scores are going to improve. Let me pull something up. I want to just give you guys an idea from last year without giving out like specifics. Because if I want to say with the mock Regents, we didn't have, okay. So the mock Regents, oh, that's funny. Between both classes for the mock Regents last year, there's only 2 accelerated. One kid got a perfect score. And ironically, that student didn't get a perfect score on the actual Regents, which is really like frustrating because he got a perfect on the mock before the review. He got like a silly point off, got a 99. So one student got 100, and then when they took the actual test, I think they had, what was it last year? You guys might know better than I did. Like 12 or something got 100. Okay, average score wise, the average score on the mock was around a 91 for one class, a 90.9 for the other. And on the actual Regents, average score 95, actual score 95.6. So what happened? They went up 4 or 5 points. All right, I'm going to pause or stop the recording. I'll stay on for another minute. Any other last minute things?